Good morning. My name is Steve Schoenberg. I'm one of the elders here at Essex Alliance Church. I'd like to share a verse with you this morning from Philippians chapter 1, verse 20. I eagerly expect and hope that I will in no way be ashamed, but will have sufficient courage, so that now, as always, Christ will be exalted in my body, whether by life or by death. This was written by the Apostle Paul from a Roman prison. He was unsure if he would be released from prison or if he was facing an imminent death. The two words that I'd like us to notice are sufficient courage. To honor and exalt Christ in our lives will require courage, even if our circumstances aren't as dire as the Apostle Paul's. I love the adjective sufficient. We just need enough courage to do what God wants. This is not about personality. It's not about how bold and imposing we are. It's about trusting in God and doing the right thing, even if it's scary or uncomfortable. A wonderful illustration of this is found in the book of Nehemiah. Nehemiah was one of the Jewish exiles in Babylon during the reign of King Artaxerxes. Some of the Jews had already gone back to Jerusalem to repopulate the land. Nehemiah received a report of their dire circumstances and fasted and prayed for several days. This is the conclusion of his prayer beginning in Nehemiah 1, verse 11. Lord, let your ear be attentive to the prayer of this your servant and to the prayer of your servants who delight in revering your name. Give your servant success today by granting him favor in the presence of this man. I was cupbearer to the king. Later, he is in the king's presence, and a story resumes in verse 1 of chapter 2. In the month of Nisan, in the 20th year of King Artaxerxes, when wine was brought before him, I took the wine and gave it to the king. I had not been sad in his presence before, so the king asked me, "Why does your face look so sad when you're not ill? This can be nothing but sadness of heart." I was very much afraid. Why was Nehemiah afraid? He was most likely prohibited from carrying any of his own troubles or burdens into the king's presence. It is entirely possible that he could have been executed for that. So as we continue reading, I was very much afraid, but I said to the king, "May the king live forever. Why should my face not look sad when the city where my ancestors are buried lies in ruins and its gates have been destroyed by fire?" The king said to me, "What is it you want?" Then I prayed to the God of heaven, and I answered the king. Nehemiah made his request for the king's assistance to enable him to return to Jerusalem and rectify the situation in his homeland. The king granted that request, and the rest of the book of Nehemiah is a wonderful story of how God was at work in that setting. It is a wonderful faith-building Bible story and illustration of how God used someone who, despite his fears, took action and experienced God's hand. The story is extremely meaningful to me for another reason. When my family and I first moved to Vermont, God provided in a rather miraculous way an entry-level job in accounting, though I did not have the background normally required. I worked in a nearby town for a CPA firm. For 6 months, I had worked hard and learned rapidly. However, there were two problems with that job. First, it didn't pay enough to support my family, which included 4 children. Since I had training and experience as an auto mechanic, I found a job working an evening shift at a nearby junkyard tearing cars apart at night after work. With this, we were barely able to survive financially. However, a problem loomed. In another month or so, tax season would begin. This is similar in the accounting profession to harvest season for a farmer. Everyone simply does whatever it takes to meet all the deadlines. A normal 40 hours per week becomes 60 or more for a 3-month period. I could not do my side job during tax season. Sometime after tax season, accounting staff would typically receive a bonus based on their work and the success of the firm. I did not know how we would survive financially in the interim. Second problem related to the firm partner that I worked under. I had been hired by one partner and assigned to the jobs of another. This partner was extremely unhappy when he learned about me. He exploded with, "They hired an ex-auto mechanic and preacher who doesn't know his posterior," different word, "from his elbow when it comes to accounting and assigned him to my clients." This individual was not subtle. So, for the first 6 months as I worked in this relatively small office, he never spoke to me, nor acknowledged me if we met in a hallway. Everything that was communicated to me regarding work came from my direct supervisor, who thankfully was a very good teacher. So, one day, while contemplating my situation, my daily devotional reading happened to be from the first chapters of Nehemiah. The similarities of certain aspects of the situation suddenly dawned on me. I needed an audience with this partner to see if something could be done about my pending crisis. So, I prayed that somehow I would be able to have a conversation with him. That very day, while working, he stopped at my desk and began to talk to me. This was the first time in 6 months. And what he had to say was that he had returned home from work, or from a very late night meeting the day before, and he noticed my car on the highway and was curious what I was doing out so late. So I told him. He immediately saw my pending problem. He thought for a moment and then said he would speak about it to the managing partner of our regional firm who worked in a neighboring state to see what could be done. Within a few days, he informed me that the company would adjust their policy in my case, if I didn't tell others, so that I would be paid currently for all the hours I worked rather than needing to wait for some future bonus. Our need was met. God demonstrated that day in a very tangible way that despite my trying circumstances, he had not abandoned me and would provide for my family. I hope this Bible story and the way God brought it to life for me will encourage you to trust in him and recall examples of his faithfulness to you. Thank you, and I hope you have a wonderful day.